In this update, we've got a lot of moving parts happening over the next 7 days. First, we have a snowstorm where the snow is continuing to fall into the northeast, as well as an atmospheric river that will pummel the west coast with a lot of rainfall. Then a concerning freezing rain ice storm could actually set up across the middle of the country. Then very heavy rain with flooding concerns for the deep south will be moving in. So I appreciate all my subscribers out there. This channel is up to 232,000 subscribers. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you are new here, I put a lot of content, in fact, on a daily basis throughout 2024. So hit the subscribe button and follow along with all my daily breakdowns. So let's take a look at this. This is the snow continuing to fall. We've already had several inches in this area, and we're going to still have snowfall continuing in around the Pittsburgh region through Baltimore. Yes, I said Baltimore. You finally broke your drought out there with this. Now you're getting more snow. So that's a pretty sight for those folks into Philadelphia and into New York City. So those, especially those areas that have been so snow drought stricken for over the last 2 years. You got back-to-back storms where you're getting some decent snowfall amounts unloading and across that region. And I think that will continue into the afternoon hours before it winds down and then just basically transfers into a kind of a lake effect snow event where these areas have been pummeled up here in towards the lakes. I saw some of these areas 4, 5, almost 6 feet of snow, just crazy amounts in and around those areas along the lakes. But for the rest of the country, there's the big picture later on this afternoon. We've got the pending atmospheric river that will be pummeling the west coast. You've got a lot of rainfall coming for you guys over the next 7 days, and there's the snow continuing to fall up here in towards the mid-Atlantic and heading into the northeast. So I am expecting likely a couple more inches in some of these spots throughout the rest of the day. And that red line there, that is your freezing line. That is another Arctic surge that moved in overnight and going to be diving southbound, bringing a lot more colder temperatures and freezing wind chills. Here's the snowfall estimates for the next 24 hours that will still unload across this region. So those areas in the kind of the grayer shaded areas, anywhere from a trace to 1 inch additional totals. You start getting into the blue areas, yeah, that's anywhere from 1 to 3 inches. And yeah, there might be some isolated pockets here, still expecting 4 to 5 inches, but nonetheless, you know, a decent snowfall up here in towards the mid-Atlantic and, you know, heading into the northeast, but especially those areas along the I-95 corridor are finally getting some snow with this particular system. But there's the Arctic air, and the true Arctic air with the high pressure coming in on the backside. So that's a 1045 Arctic high pressure. You know, it's really cold underneath that, and a 1033 sinks all the way into Texas, heading into Tennessee. So you know there's definitely some colder air. So if we check underneath that, yeah, where that 1045 is, that's minus 15, minus 20 degrees below zero up there in eastern Nebraska, heading into Iowa, with dangerously cold temperatures. And that's air temperatures, folks. That's not wind chill. So yes, I know you've been colder than this, but this is another surge, and it's been a very cold week, and we still have several days to contend with this Arctic air mass as that plunges all the way down into the deep south. So you all the way to the coast, folks. No one's going to be left unscathed except you go all those far southern interiors where you're not going to see that freeze line. But most of the country, a good 80% of the country, is going to wake up tomorrow morning with a freeze, and if not a hard freeze in a lot of these areas for the deep south. So, and you can see that red line, right, plunging all the way down into even going into Saturday, heading into portions of Sunday morning. And that's where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. So we're still going to have the rainfall, continuous atmospheric river kind of set up. This is El Nino all day long on full throttle coming up this week, with very heavy rain along the Oregon coast into California. It's not just Northern California this time. It's all of Central and, you know, eventually all of Southern California, as that snowstorm will start to wind down, and there's that lake effect snow, more lake effect snow on the backside. But the clearing out in the middle underneath that Arctic high. Arctic high is the driest air, so you typically get clear skies. That's why you bottom out so cold, because of the clear skies underneath that Arctic air mass. And it's exactly what you're going to find. But going into Sunday, we're not going to have clear skies. It's going to be a pretty dynamic setup. So you got the setup. We already know it's going to be raining out there across the west. We've got another little short wave going to be moving across the desert southwest and eventually heading into western Texas here, while all eyes will drop further south into the Caribbean and into the Gulf of Mexico. And if you're with me yesterday, we talked about all that deep ocean water content, those well above average temperature anomalies down there in the tropics, in the heart of the Caribbean. That's where this moisture surge is coming from, and this is why it's going to have a lot of higher water content values with this particular system coming up, because it's literally going all the way down here into the Caribbean, and it's transporting. This is the water vapor transporting index setting up across a good part of the deep south, and that will lift the moisture further north into North Texas, into Oklahoma, into Missouri, and eventually heading up into Illinois, into Indiana, while they just continue to get pummeled across the west. So the south wind is a warm wind. It's going to lift those temperatures from the south to the north. But the problem is we still have Arctic air in place, and that's a shallow air mass. Remember, it sinks to the surface, and you got warmer air aloft. So on the initial stages, I'm definitely getting concerned about some ice setting up on the leading edge. But yeah, there's no question. There's a lot of rainfall moving in by Monday timeframe. They've already got even a day for a risk in and around the Houston region, back down towards Victoria, Beaumont, into the Lake Charles region. And then you got a marginal risk for excessive rainfall leading all the way up into Dallas and heading up into Oklahoma City and towards Arkansas. But that's on Monday. But before that, into Sunday night, heading into Monday morning, on the leading edge, you still have that Arctic air in place. And looking at some of the temperature parameters heading into Sunday night towards that midnight time frame, towards that 3 o'clock in the morning time frame, there's going to be a narrow window for sure. There's going to be a narrow window there where there's temperatures still 29, 31, 29, anywhere from 30, 32 degrees, right there, freezing or slightly below freezing, where you could have that moisture surge coming in and could have that changeover to some of that freezing rain and cause just a complete mess. I think starting from those areas right around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if not just tad bit northwest of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and that will extend into Oklahoma. So here's the latest NAM, some of the resolutions, short range resolution guidance that is just now coming into the picture, is not painting a pretty sight, with temperatures right at that cusp of 29, 30, 31, 32 degrees. About 3 o'clock in the morning, we could be looking at some freezing drizzle, freezing rain starting to set up across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, northwest of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and heading into that Oklahoma region, going into that Monday morning, mid-Monday morning time frame. So there's going to be a narrow window, especially for those areas further south into Texas, likely only about 6 or 9 hours before it all transitions to just an all rain, a chilly rain, but an all rain further south. So you got heavy rain into the Houston, those areas, Austin, San Antonio, Waco, likely heavy rain. But those areas north of there, we could have a small window where they have some freezing rain, and definitely even further north of there into Oklahoma, where you're in that colder air longer, we could be looking at some serious ice starting to set up and across the Oklahoma region. And that will continue to lift up into Arkansas and a good part of Missouri. And overall, again, with some of the short range guidances, some of the ensembles, the blend of the models starting to come into fruition, this is where I'm concerned about some freezing rain, freezing drizzle, freezing rain setting up into possibly an ice storm in some of these areas across Oklahoma, into Arkansas, through Missouri. And I think eventually this will get into Illinois, into portions of Indiana, into Michigan. So I'm thinking Sunday night, starting further south, transitions to Monday, transitions to Tuesday morning, starts to wind down on Tuesday afternoon as you've got that warm flow shifting in from the south, elevating those temperatures, eating away and eroding, and then of course the rain will start to melt some of that ice, but definitely maybe some treacherous travel between that Sunday night and Tuesday afternoon time slot as you lift further north. So here's the drought index, and I'm showing you this because we have got a lot of rainfall happening in some of those areas that desperately need the rainfall. Look at those areas in Louisiana and the Mississippi. Now we've eaten away some of this, and some of this was beyond the exceptional as we got just a couple of months ago heading into Louisiana and the Mississippi. So we've already had some kind of a drought busting type rains, but I think what's coming over the next week, we could likely put even a major dent. And I don't know about eliminating, but we do have a lot of rainfall coming for this area because of just that deep tropical moisture that we highlighted on this channel for a couple of days now. That is going to be extending into the Gulf of Mexico and eventually setting up shop, especially across the deep south. And it doesn't look to move all week long. So that's the concern about this setup. It's just going to send in pulses of energy coming in from the Gulf with very heavy rain for January standards. This isn't May, but it's January. These are typically the second driest month other than July and August. So yeah, so these areas, you're getting at the 99 percentile for some of these areas for this time of year. So I'm expecting numerous flood watches to unload across this region, and I'm very concerned about flooding setting up, especially as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday and deeper into the week, as the ground is just going to get saturated with all the heavier rainfall. So I think it starts on that Monday time slot where they've already got that slight risk for excessive rainfall. I wouldn't even be surprised they might even increase it to a moderate. But either way, this is going to be an extended time. It's not going to just be like a one-day wonder. This is an all-week type of deal that will be inundating these areas. So it starts off on Monday. You got freezing rain on the leading edge of this particular system, and then that will continue into Tuesday. And of course, as the Arctic air starts to retreat, it'll have the freezing rain on the leading edge, and then it'll transfer to all snow further north to that. So you could get another swath of snow across Iowa, Wisconsin here, into Michigan, across these northern Great Lakes region heading into Tuesday afternoon, as that finally that warmer air will eventually start to take over. So it lifts further and further north. You might ring out some snow showers into the mountain regions, but eventually even this is going to be taking over, as it's just going to be a steady stream of moisture coming in for the deep south. So these areas are just going to get pummeled with heavy rainfall all week long, and eventually the warm air is going to win. So by Wednesday afternoon, I think pretty much everywhere across the U.S., the pattern flattens out, cold air lifts further north back into Canada, and boom, you've got hardly any snow to talk about, hardly any freezing rain to talk about, but you got a lot of rain to talk about for sure, and some warmer temperatures heading into that Wednesday time frame. But looking at Thursday, right? This is Thursday. This is just the continuing to flow across these same areas along the deep south, and eventually this will, as the warmer temperatures start to take over, it'll push that precipitation even further north. So now it's just an all rain type setup into Illinois, across Kentucky, into Tennessee, into West Virginia, and eventually heading up into the Carolinas. And even on Friday, same deal, folks. I mean, just a continuous flow further to the south with very heavy rainfall. So you can imagine we're going to put together some serious totals, but by the time this work week is going to be over. So starting off out west, there's the funnel effect with the atmospheric river coming in off the west coast. Look at the chart at the bottom of the screen here. Those areas in red, easily 2 to 4 inches. You start getting to those brown shaded areas, especially those white shaded areas. Yeah, you're approaching 6, 8, 10 inches of rainfall. And look what's highlighted across Houston, across Beaumont, across Lake Charles, into New Orleans. Those areas, especially along the coast there. This could actually be even conservative, folks. 6 to 10 inches. I wouldn't be surprised we get some 15-inch totals, maybe even 20-inch totals by the time it's all said and done down here towards this region right here, especially along the I-10, I-20 corridor, lighter amounts further north, extending into the Metroplex, extending into Oklahoma, going into Arkansas, Mississippi, into Alabama, and lighter amounts as you head up into Tennessee and Kentucky. But nonetheless, we got a lot of rain going to be unfolding after the leading edge of that ice setup across the middle of the country. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update. Wire protect you before and after storm.